You know Graybar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Graybar does that.
Episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball, as the band is back together. Tyler Vaughn, Sam Dykstra, Benjamin Hill. Fellas, how are you? What's going
on? Pretty good. Tyler, did you start out with that intro saying the band is back together?
I didn't actually.
Our
and that's
for the week
in our second consecutive day of communicating about this show. Now we have each, you and I, made an unwittingly tied in joke to the movie That Thing You Do. This is pretty good. It's pretty good podcast synergy, Sam.
Yes, it's almost like we planned this out, but we actually did not. We don't have the means to do that. We just appear to be, after how many shows now, on the same wavelength.
Yeah, exactly. It only took us 6 years of this, or whatever it is. But we do have a very fun interview coming up. I was not able to be a part of it. And on the one hand, I'm very disappointed in that. On the other hand, I'm really excited to just get to listen to this interview now, as Benjamin Hill with us as well. Ben, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I thought when you said the band got back together, I thought it was BANNED because we've all been ostracized from polite society.
That's true too.
Now the band are back together.
The band among us back together. It's kind of a band-centric show this week, sort of, but not a real band, a fictional band. The Wonders from Erie, Pennsylvania. They were the subject of at least my most anticipated promotion of the year in Erie, PA, this past week, hosted by the AA Erie Seawolves. We'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. The subjects of the 1996 cinematic juggernaut, That Thing You Do. It has been 25 years since That Thing You Do came out, which makes me feel a whole lot of things. But let's talk about other things as we get started on this week's episode of the official podcast of Minor League Baseball. Thanks for tuning in wherever you found us on your favorite podcast service. You can give us a rating and a review and a subscription, and let us know what you think and what you would like to hear about as we get closer to postseason time and all that stuff. You can get in touch, podcast@milb.com. But we're covering all things business of baseball. We're talking some on-field stuff a little bit later on in the show as well. And we are going to kick things off with a story that our good pal Ben has up on the site at milb.com, which is a story about one of the most recognizable members of the Hickory Crawdads family, and not necessarily a person that you would expect to be that identifiable member. Ben, tell us about the Baby Conrad, who you uncovered in Hickory.
Yeah, I was in Hickory at this point, 6-7 weeks ago. But since my hours are reduced these days, as I'm on intermittent parental leave, I just keep getting to reach back in my road trip stash and write stories. So it was good to go back and visit this one from Hickory. This is a story about Baby Conrad, and Baby Conrad is one of the team's mascots. Officially, he is the baby child, the baby son of primary mascot Conrad and his wife Candy. Although I believe they got married after they had the child. I'm not judging, but Candy and Conrad had a child. Baby Conrad later got married. I find the domestic lives of mascots to be really interesting, and the way that teams flesh those out or do not. Anyhow, Baby Conrad, like his parents, is a crawdad. A crayfish, a crawfish, a crustacean, a mud bug. And I got to know Baby Conrad's, best friend, the person who brings Baby Conrad to life, the mascot performer, Alex Copeland, and he's 14 years old, and he's been doing this for years already. He does it on a volunteer basis. His mother drives him to every game. And during the 2021 season, the Crawdads have often not had their primary mascot because of a COVID restricted clubhouse and not having enough laundry space. This is minor league baseball, folks. Like sometimes you don't have a mascot because there is not the ability to do laundry and launder the suits as much as is needed. So the team's most reliable mascot during the season has been Baby Conrad, brought to life by a 14-year-old kid, Alex, who's a really serious, studious, nice kid. And I got to interview him about why he loves being a mascot, what got him to be interested in the first place. Talked to his mom as well. I just kind of thought it was sweet. She's really proud of her son and just the sacrifice she's making, the way moms do, bringing her son to these games, all throughout the season, especially on the weekends, so that he can pursue this passion he has for being a mascot performer. And these are the kind of stories I like to tell. So it's Baby Conrad and the 14-year-old kid who brings him to life, who's been doing it, in some way, shape, or form for virtually half of his 14 years on Earth. He's been a mascot performer and is putting a lot of time and effort into it. And his mom's given him an assist, and the front office has always been really supportive. And soon he'll get a license and maybe be able to get hired and stop doing this on a volunteer basis. And if it's something he wants to pursue, just think of just have the amount of work he's gotten already and experience through this puts him ahead of the game. I think about the things that I love, and what if I gotten started that earlier or had this kind of opportunity, no matter what it is. So it's cool to write about that and find things in minor league baseball that are a little anomalous. We've talked to who's probably the oldest mascot performer on this podcast a couple months ago, 70-year-old Tom Hunsicker. I believe his name was Tom, with the Reading Fighting Phils. And now we're talking about a 14-year-old mascot performer. Always trying to find the oldest, the youngest, the most interesting.
Running the gamut.
Running the gamut. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, and one thing that stood out to me from your interview with him was this quote about him taking it serious. Like you have to. It's a job. Like he shows up. We should also mention he is volunteering to do this, but it goes towards like a high school requirement that he has to do volunteer work. So he's getting something out of it for sure. But he was saying, like, I have to take this seriously because if I didn't, like, I wouldn't still have this job after all these years. So what else stood out to you about just the conversations you had with Alex Copeland?
Well, I think it's interesting because I point out that he is very serious about this as something he wants to do, being a mascot performer, suiting up as Baby Conrad. But he has this one quote that I include in the article. This is the one place where I can act how I want to be around people. They don't know who I am. I don't really know who they are. For me, it just brings a different person out and I enjoy it. And I think that's an interesting point about being a mascot in general. But here's this kid, who seemed to be fairly quiet, shy, reserved. And then you find, as he said, the one place where I can act how I want to be around people, meaning you put on the mascot suit and you can be gregarious and say hello and do slap fives and fist bumps and just be goofy and the life of the party. And, that's hard for not just him, but for most of us to access in real life and have it come across as, something that other people want you to be like, and then B, just, often we're shy and introverted people. And I think a lot of mascot performers, have that experience where who they are in day-to-day life might be very different than the personality they can access inside the suit. And I think that's one of many reasons it's a very interesting job. It's also kind of a hard job to write about because of, do you call these people mascot performers? Do you say they're the mascot's best friend? There's a lot of, tight-lipped, policies in the mascot industry about, talking about the mascots as if they are not wholly 100% real living beings all the time and not brought to life by a man in a suit. A lot of teams' official stories is there is no suit. And I get that. And I don't want to ruin the magic, but sometimes I just want to tell the stories about the people in the suits. And it's hard to walk that line sometimes.
I mean, we should be clear when you were talking about before about doing laundry, like these mascots are wearing clothes. They have laundry to do. Too.
Right. It's just the clothes that the mascot wears, not
Yes.
an entire suit. That turns you into someone else. I mean, this Conrad, he's just like an anthropomorphic, 6 foot tall crustacean. And That's just who he is.
And wears clothes and needs to do laundry every once in a while.
Yeah.
And if he can't do laundry, doesn't want to be out in public.
Yeah.
That's,
just like
normal
all of
stuff.
us. Yeah,
It's
that's the
identifiable.
only reason there.
It's an identifiable problem. Guys, let's continue this conversation with Ben's next step on the road. Ben, you were actually set to go to Somerset to visit the new AA affiliate of the New York Yankees a few weeks ago in a game that got rained out. It has since been a long few weeks for the Somerset Patriots, whose ballpark was completely inundated by water when the remnants of Hurricane Ida went through the Northeast. But they are set to return home, and you are set to meet them there. Tell us about the trip to Somerset.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. I had originally scheduled to go to Somerset, and then because it was not part of a larger trip, just a standalone visit, when the weather forecast didn't look good, I thought, I'll postpone the visit. And they did play that night, but it was rainy and the game was delayed, and I think it's for the best that I didn't go. But then 1 week after that, then real bad weather happened, and this ballpark, and you can go online and look, the TD Bank Ballpark, home of the Somerset Patriots, got absolutely deeply flooded last week in the wake of Hurricane Ida. The ballpark is near the Raritan River in central New Jersey. And, there were some aerial shots circulating all over the internet where the entire field was flooded way up into the seating bowl. And I think your first thought when you see that is this team's not playing again at home for the remainder of 2021. And that was just a week ago, literally 1 week ago. And as we're talking now, it was last Thursday, and here we are talking on the following Thursday. And now tomorrow, September 10th, 8 days after the flooding, they are returning home for the final 3 games of their final homestand. And to look at how the park was just so recently, and now to know that they're set to host games is just a story in and of itself. So one, I'm looking forward to going to Somerset because it's a ballpark I've not been to yet. That was an Atlantic League team for a lot of years. This is their first season as an affiliated team, AA, with the Yankees. So I'm just looking forward to going to a ballpark I've never been. But now on top of that, there's this whole angle of how did you get this deeply, deeply flooded ballpark back to playable conditions in the span of a week? It's a pretty remarkable story, but one that they do have some precedence with. I was talking with the team last week, and Hurricane Floyd in '99 and Irene in, I believe, 2010 caused similar scenarios. So as much as it's a difficult and scary thing to go through, they've been there before. So I think that maybe added to some of the confidence of, okay, we know what we have to do and let's get it done. And fortunately, they were able to.
And that brings us to our conversation for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. The Erie Seawolves, the AA affiliate of the Detroit Tigers, just so happen to call home the town that launched one of the biggest fictional music acts of the 1960s in The Wonders, the subject of the movie That Thing You Do. And Erie this past weekend hosted a promotion, a salute to 25 years since the release of That Thing You Do. They welcomed back 3 members of the Wonders band from the movie. They did not get Ethan Embry to show up, which was due to real world reasons, but is very fitting because there's a point in the movie in which Ethan Embry just disappears from the band and ends up going to Disneyland and nobody knows where he is. So it's kind of fitting that Ethan Embry, the bass player in the movie, did not show up. But guys, tell us about who we're hearing from with Erie this weekend in this conversation coming up.
Yeah, that would be, I'd say, the mastermind of this promotion, the Erie Seawolves Wonder Night, or certainly one of the masterminds, and the man at the top of the organizational front office hierarchy, team president Greg Coleman, who had a lot to say about this promotion and how special it was for the team and the community and how they were able to pull it off. Because as we talked about a number of times on this show throughout this season, haven't seen a lot of real premiere promos for different reasons after, 2020 didn't happen at all. And this season has been a mess in a lot of ways. So we haven't seen this type of promo very often where a team went all out, celebrated an anniversary, got some, big time guest list stars at the ballpark and pulled it off. So I think it's an interesting conversation that Sam and I had. And Tyler, we missed you every step of the way that you weren't able to have this conversation along with us.
I was very bummed.
But you were there in spirit. With, Greg Coleman of the Erie Seawolves, president of the Erie Seawolves, talking about Erie Wonders Night.
All right, listen up, nacho chips. Quiet down, crispy potatoes. This is the moment Velveeta's been preparing you for, and you're not about to crack under pressure. Today's the day to go all in on the drip. Velveeta's Heat and Eat Queso is the MVP of any game day spread, so stick by them, and you'll be golden. Now get out there and make delicious history. No tailgate party is complete without Velveeta.
Doing that thing you do, breaking my heart into a million pieces, like you always do.
Here on the Show Before the Show podcast, I, Ben Hill, along with Sam Dykstra, am joined by a special guest, Erie Seawolves president, Greg Coleman. And Greg Coleman is here today to talk about Wonders Night, a wonderful promotion that took place at an Erie Seawolves game last Saturday, September 4th. And it was all in tribute to the movie, That Thing You Do, and that movie's famous band, a fictional band, The Wonders, who were from Erie, Pennsylvania. So really exciting promotion. The team played as The Wonders. Took a lot of work to put it together. First of all, Greg, thank you for being with us. I should have gotten that out of the way right away, but thank you. It's good to see you. Good to have you on the show, and thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. Always love to talk about great promotional ideas, and we kind of like this one. We're pretty proud of this one.
Yeah, and this one was in the works for a long time. I'm sure, kind of at least bandied about in the front office for many years. You first announced it as a more speculative thing on April 1st, 2020. And it kind of took off from there and became a real thing. And I know you worked on it, for a long time. So take us through the process. How did the idea for this come about, and how did you start to put it together?
Sure, Ben. Well, you mentioned that this is something that's been in the works for a while. Well, I think the year-end promotional meetings that we have where we kick around ideas, I think it was probably the last cut on our promotional schedule about 3 times. And that was because it was always something random, like, oh, it's the 21st anniversary of the movie, or it just from a timing standpoint, it didn't quite make sense, or from a budget standpoint, it didn't quite make sense. But when we all found ourselves at home during the COVID shutdown, and maybe with a little more time to be creative, I was just sitting there thinking to myself, you know what? We're coming up on the 25th anniversary here soon. I don't know if we're going to be playing baseball this year or not, but we might have an opportunity to do something interesting here. So I put together a graphic and I sent it off to our assistant GM of communications, Greg Gagne, and it basically mocked up what the Wonders jersey would look like. And I said, look, let's put it out today. If this is something that gains traction, then we do it. If it's something that just everybody yawns at, then, hey, April Fools, we're not going to do it. But immediately we put it out of the world, and the response was just overwhelming. People who were just like, how can I get that jersey? I was like, hold on a second. I just made it on my computer this morning. Let's pump the brakes. But we put it out there, and I think we thought it would be a good idea. I think we thought we were going to do it, but then some other circumstances, certainly made it so that we would do it. And I'll start by saying that on April 1st, that same day that we put it out, the gentleman who wrote the song "That Thing You Do," Adam Schlesinger, who has many writing credits to his name, and who also was in the band Fountains of Wayne, was actually nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Song for this. He passed away due to COVID. And at the time we put this out, we had no idea, and I'm, by the way, I'm a big Fountains of Wayne fan, so I'm probably more in tune than most, but I hadn't heard that he was sick. And later that evening he passed away. And it's sort of one of those things where, here's this great promotional idea, and all of a sudden it just went sideways really, really quickly. So I regrouped and put together a few words out on Twitter and said, hey, look, we didn't know, but we feel very strongly about doing this, and we want the legacy to live on, and so we're going to do it. Well, I think, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think the actors, particularly Tom Everett Scott, had seen that and had remarked about how, I guess, how nice that was to hear those words, and I think right off the bat we had built a really strong relationship with the actors, because they knew that we were going to do right by them and by Adam and the movie. And so that was how this whole thing started, a very odd 24-hour period of time. And then we just had to sort of wait to see when anybody could venture out into the world. And fortunately, by the time 2021 came around, we had the opportunity. So once we got a schedule for this year, which was obviously, a little bit later than normal, we started to take a look and kind of guess, well, hey, when might we be able to gather again? What does that look like? It's probably not going to be in May. It's not going to be in June. It turns out the anniversary of the movie was in the fall, and so and we kind of thought the COVID caseloads would start to reduce a little bit by then, and so we all agreed on a date on Labor Day weekend. It all worked out for everybody. There was one small change at the end, but it worked out for everybody, and so it was pretty remarkable. But there were a lot of hoops we had to jump through before we got to September 4th.
Yeah, and one of the the most remarkable aspects of the promotion is not only did you play as the Wonders, but you got together a band reunion of this fictional band, the Wonders, and got the actors who played those characters to the ballpark. I'm sure that took quite a bit of wrangling to find a date that could work, and getting everyone on board for that. So what was that like in terms of putting it together, whether it was actually going to be the band the Wonders while you were playing as the Wonders?
In some ways it was really hard, and in other ways it was very easy. So we had to get across one big hurdle first, which was that we don't own the intellectual property rights. So to be able to create a jersey that says Wonders, we had to get permission from the folks who had that. In this particular case, it was the executives at Playtone, Tom Hanks and Gary Getzman. Once we got across that hurdle, then we could have a conversation about getting the guys out to a specific date. And so you've got actors they're all working. They're all working. Steve Zahn just had The White Lotus that was out. Tom Everett Scott has been in a series of things. He's filming something for Amazon Prime right now. So I mean, they all have stuff going on, and we just they just all were committed to this idea for whatever reason. There was no official 25th anniversary of this movie planned, and maybe it's because there's a lot of things that you might normally do in a normal year that this year just didn't rise to the level of happening, right? And so the fact that we were willing to do it, and the fact that these guys have remained friends. I mean, Tom Everett Scott, this was his first movie, and so these guys, really bonded on the set. So the opportunity to come to Erie, Pennsylvania, a place that they actually had never been, to come do a panel discussion on the movie, and also to hang out with their friends for a couple of days. I mean, it was an opportunity, especially coming out of COVID, where you couldn't connect with anybody. It was an opportunity I think that they couldn't pass up, and we loved having the opportunity to be the venue for that.
Yeah, and now that everything got to be set up, when actual Wonders Night happened, just take listeners through, what did that look like? You mentioned there was a panel. The guys from the Wonders got to do a little bit of singing, but what did it look like when the day actually arrived?
Well, it was a pretty complete promotion. So the guys rolled into town on Friday, and I tell you what, they had a ball. So on the road, they're rolling into town and they're filming videos from the road, from their road trip, and so they're getting everybody really, really excited for it. We had a nice dinner with them on Friday night, and then on Saturday they came to the ballpark, and we had a couple different pre-planned elements. So they had a VIP session where about 170 people were able to listen to this panel discussion. We had solicited questions about the movie that our moderator Greg Gagne had asked, and so fans had a chance to kind of hear their questions asked of the actors, and then they did meet and greet photos and autographs with the folks in that session. Then they went and they did an autograph session at concourse level, and did that for about another 45 minutes. And then we worked them into the game presentation. So they did things like sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" during the 7th inning stretch. Steve Zahn took a turn on the public address. Things like that. Take Me Out to the Ball Game was pretty cool because not only did they sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game, we followed that up with the song That Thing You Do, which they performed. Now keep in mind, right? They're a band from a movie, and they're very talented actors. They're not necessarily very talented singers, but it didn't matter when you had a couple thousand people that were there singing along with them. It was what everybody came out to see. When we got done the game presentation elements, we prepared for a post-game movie. So we had purchased the rights to play That Thing You Do on the video board after the game. So a lot of the fans stuck around and grabbed the lawn chair, grabbed the blanket from their car, and came out and sat on the field and watched the movie. And while that was going on, some of the folks that were still who attended the VIP session are some of our staff members. We actually watched the movie with those guys from our UPMC Park Stadium Club. And you want to talk about like the ultimate director's cut, right? You hear all the things and that you know that are on the Blu-ray and the commentary, but it's something different to be kind of next to Steve Zahn and having him tell you, oh, here's what was happening during that scene. And Ethan Embry really dropped the bass accidentally during that scene, and it's like, man, this is a super director's cut. And then on Sunday, they rolled out of town and they road tripped back to Steve Zahn's house in Kentucky, and it was just a magical about 48-hour period of time where a great idea met people who were excited about it. And I should note, I want to be clear about this too. It wasn't just about a celebration. It also raised money. The jerseys that we wore, the VIP session, the autograph session, they all benefited a charity called Noticeability, which serves students who have dyslexia. And 3 of the 4 wonders have battled with dyslexia in their youth and in their careers. And so this is something that was very near and dear to them. So the opportunity to do that made it even better. We were able to raise over $25,000 for the charity through the event. So very, very proud of that.
And as we've mentioned a few times here, the actual movie, the band is from Erie, Pennsylvania. That's the obvious tie-in here. But for people who don't know Erie very well, like I'm from Massachusetts, people quote Good Will Hunting to me all the time because, that's just what people do. That's what people think of Boston, for example. For Erie, I think that's what a lot of people think of is that movie. What kind of status does the actual film, That Thing You Do, have in the city of Erie?
People are really proud of it. I think it was described to me that Erie is like another character in the movie because some of the pivotal moments early in the movie are staged at places that are recognizable. Even though it wasn't filmed in Erie, they mentioned Mercyhurst College, which is Mercyhurst University locally, that where the Wonders won a talent show. There's a Italian restaurant called Villa Pianos that everyone assumes is Serafini's, which is out near the airport. There is there's a shot, the opening scene of the movie that is again, meant to be in Erie, but was filmed in Orange County, California. That shows what is our main drag in town, State Street, and you can see the historic Boston store clock. You can see a small shop on the side of the road that's called the Erie Indemnity Exchange, which is Erie Insurance, which is now grown to be a Fortune 500 company. All these little small tidbits, we all take pride. And one of the great moments, we were watching the movie after the game, was anytime something that came up that was Erie centric, whether it was the Mercyhurst talent show or Steve Zahn saying, "Hey, you got to be quick with me. I'm from Erie, PA." The place just roared. I mean, it was so amazing to kind of be there sharing that moment with so many people from Erie, Pennsylvania, and some people coming to experience Erie for the first time. But it was really a moment to just soak in.
Yeah, and following up on that, I mean, the movie is obviously important to the people of Erie, Pennsylvania, but it's also important to a lot of people around the country, around the world. It's gathered quite a following in these 25 years. And since you were the only venue to have a official 25th anniversary celebration, what kind of fan response did you get, not from your day-to-day fan base, but from all around the country, people who said, wow, I have to go to Erie, Pennsylvania to see this particular thing happen?
Yeah, we had visitors from 20 different states. So we had a pretty good turnout from outside of Erie, Pennsylvania. And keep in mind, that number might have been a lot higher if we had greater capacity to serve those folks in a couple of our special experiences. So like our VIP session and our autograph session both sold out in the first 24 hours. and we had announced this thing, I don't know, probably about 6-7 weeks before the actual event date. I think it definitely is something that resonated with people. Social media told us everything we needed to know, which is people engaging with the actors, people engaging with the teams, people who contacted us who said, look, I can't be here, I have something else that's important in my life where I can't travel because of COVID restrictions or whatever it might have been, saying, how can I get a jersey, how can I get a question in for the Q&A session. People wanted to be a part of this, and it wasn't just Erie. There were a lot of folks who this movie has been important to them for one reason or another. I heard stories about how this was the first movie that a woman's father took her to, and that's a memory that she has that's really important to her. As life goes on, it's become more important to her. Some of the folks I heard say, "Look, I picked up the instrument because I saw this movie and it was something that I wanted to try." So it's a movie that I think over time has really held up. And it's a feel-good movie, even though I know the band breaks up in the end. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen it in 25 years, even though that's the case, it's still sort of this feel-good that the amazing can happen. One day you can be playing in your garage, and in a very, very short time you can be on television playing for millions of people. And and sometimes just when preparation meets opportunity, good things can happen. And so I think that message of hope has resonated with a lot of folks who still hold the movie dear all these years later.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that just really came together really well this year, like you were saying, that message of hope, when we could all use it in 2020 and 2021. So I guess my next question is, when you do have an event that is this successful and does have such close ties to the community, I know it's early days, this just happened over the weekend, but is there talk about bringing this back? Is this going to become a yearly thing, or is it something you kind of keep special and in its own place and tied to an anniversary like this one was?
Well, it's certainly something that's been suggested to us. It's certainly something we've considered. I will tell you that I think there's a certain lightning in a bottle to what we've done, a certain magic that I think we might be able to take this and build upon it. But I think the first time you do it, and having sort of the stars aligned in the way that they did, I think there's a magic there that would be very, very difficult to repeat. We have talked about the possibility of playing a game as the Wonders every year. We would need to go back to Playtone to make sure they support that idea. We've also talked about, okay, maybe we did the 25th, maybe we need to prepare for the 30th, and just do it less often, but do it on a larger scale. I think the one thing for us that has left us feeling a little empty is not the right word, but just incomplete, was that late in the process, Ethan Embry, who plays a TV player in the movie, Ethan wasn't able to make the trip. He was planning. We had him scheduled to be here all the way up till the end, and he's shooting on a series, and that series has a couple of older actresses, and there are some health concerns in terms of their ability to get vaccinated, and so they have very strict protocols associated with it. And so as a result of that, and the shooting schedule changing, we weren't able to get him here, but we were able to have him participate in the panel discussion via Zoom. So he participated, but he's still never been to Erie, and so when I say it sort of feels, I guess, a little incomplete, is because until Ethan Embry gets to Erie, I'm not sure we've done our job. So maybe there's an opportunity for us to do something in the future where Ethan comes to town. Any of the guys who came already who were available make the trip. Maybe Liv Tyler, who played an important role in it, could be here. So there definitely are places we can go with it. We want to make sure that it stays special, those memories remain, and that if we're going to do something again, that we're true to the movie and we're true to our community.
Yeah, definitely want to get Ethan Embry out there to have the true full band reunion. But thinking even bigger, you talked about the stars aligning. What about the biggest star? This was Tom Hanks' directorial debut, this movie. And, by all accounts, he's America's dad, America's grandfather, super nice guy.
He's been in baseball movies.
Yeah, why not get old Tom Hanks out to the ballpark?
I know the guys absolutely threw it out there to to both Tom. Colin Hanks actually was in the movie at a small bit in the movie. Tom's wife, Rita Wilson, was in the movie. So, no, I think it's very possible that we could go there. I'm not sure if that happens on the 26th anniversary or whether it needs to be the the 30th. But no, we definitely go there. But I will tell you that Tom was supportive of this. Tom actually donated a couple of items to be a part of the auction. A couple of cool things. He had signed a copy of the original motion picture soundtrack, and so we were able to auction that off. And then he also had provided a jersey from a ballpark tour that he had taken in celebration of his 50th birthday. It's a Playtone jersey and has a patch on the sleeve that says all the ballparks that they went to. And this is literally right out of Tom Hanks's closet. And that, that raised money as well. So we can't say enough nice things about Tom, the folks at Playtone, for their support of this. And then the actors, I mean, they were just remarkable. Jonathan Sheck and Steve Zahn and Tom Everett Scott. Anything that we asked them to do in support of either promoting the movie or getting it right. One of the things that was crazy is this movie came out in 1996, and you think back to 1996 and things were they were different. Photos weren't digital. Logos were still produced with logo slicks. There are things like that. A lot of listeners might not even know what a logo slick is, but things were done differently. We literally had to recreate logos and graphics for this movie because we didn't have what was needed, because they just some of the things originally were hand painted, hand sewn, and so there was a lot of work that was done just to kind of get to square one. So, but we're glad we were able to do it. It was a lot of fun. And if Tom Hanks ever wants to make his way back to Erie, Pennsylvania, that was actually the inspiration for the movie. He had passed through. He had stopped on his way along the way, and I think he had gone to a local festival and just kind of had a warm, fuzzy feeling about Erie, and that ended up putting us in a movie eventually.
Well, there you have it. Tom Hanks, if you're listening,
and we know you are.
Pretty sure he is better than average shot that he is. I know he likes this podcast. Make it out to Erie, PA for the next edition of Wonders Night. But in the meantime, congrats, Greg Coleman, president of the Erie Seawolves, on such a great, impactful, fun night at the ballpark during a season, which has been tough to really pull off these premier promotions. So, congrats on getting it done, and thanks for taking the time to speak with us about it on the Show Before the Show podcast.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I also want to give a quick shout out to the Seawolves staff. They worked their tails off to put this together, and they deserve all the credit.
Absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's. Here comes 3-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that fourth ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling 4 things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
Well, huge thanks to Greg Coleman and the Erie Seawolves, and such a fun interview, such a fun conversation, and a promotion that I very much wish that I would have just made the trip to go see. But it's funny, I actually had 2 friends who traveled to Erie. One of them is from Erie originally, but 2 friends who traveled to Erie for that promotion and were sending me pictures and stuff of the wonders of Lenny and Guy and Jimmy on the field. I will not give you their real names: Tom Everett Scott and Steve Zahn and all of them. It doesn't matter. They're the wonders to us, and the only thing that matters is honoring their tremendous one-hit status from the mid-1960s in a fictional movie. So with that, we're going to move on to 3 Strikes on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, in which Sam and I discuss 3 big topics across the world of minor league baseball, and we are getting closer and closer to the return of postseason play in the minor leagues. Playoff procedures are going to look a little bit different here in 2021. But we already have some teams. The Fresno Grizzlies qualified as the top team right now in the Low A West League. And we've got all kinds of various clinchings across the minors. Sam, for Strike One this week, tell us about what the minor league postseason picture is going to look like here in 2021 and some of the teams that we will be seeing in it.
Yeah, so this has been around for a while, or it's been out there for a while, but just to give everybody a refresher, because we are coming in on the closing days of the minor league season. And some of these games really have, like big heft in terms of clinching playoff spots. So it's not your usual minor league postseason. That shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. We've talked about the AAA final stretch before. So just as a refresher on that, the AAA regular season has essentially been extended 2 weeks, but those final 2 weeks are going to be a postseason tournament in their own right. Teams will be playing one home series, at their place, another series on the road. Whoever has the best record is going to be determined the AAA final stretch winner. So that's kind of its own thing. One thing to point out about that is that those games actually count as regular season games for stats purposes. So if you're following some of the minor league stats races like we've been doing for much of the summer, just know that what you do in a AAA final stretch game actually counts towards your regular season stats. For the other leagues in AA, High A, and Low A, a lot of these leagues have divisions, and normally divisions have mattered in the past. We've even had first half, second half division champions to kind of beef out the postseason. That's not happening this year. They're trying to limit travel because of COVID and trying to make sure everybody's going to stay safe. So each league is only going to have 2 representatives in the playoffs. That's going to essentially be the finals straight away. So it doesn't matter what division you're in. It could be, I have the Low A East standings up, for example. There's 3 divisions in that group. Doesn't matter. One division winner is not going to be participating in this postseason. That we could have 2 teams from the same division, for all we know. It looks like Charleston's going to be going to that. They have 77 wins. Nobody else in the league has more than 67. There's a little bit of a race to get to that second spot, but it's only going to be 2 teams in the postseason, so that's something to keep an eye on as we come down to the wire here. It might be kind of cool if your favorite High A, Low A, Double A team clinches its own division, doesn't make the playoffs. You can determine whether that means something to you or not. I've talked to players recently who they care about this. They care about this every year, making the playoffs, making a push for a ring. If you're going to play an entire summer, you want it to feel like it was for something beyond just personal development. You want that team success as well. For example, I know I was talking to Tristan Casas in the Red Sox organization. Portland is going right up to the wire right now in Double A Northeast. Right now, they sit 3 games behind Somerset. So we'll see how that's going to go. I know Bowie is also in that race. Akron is in that race in the other division. So some real close ones. Check out the standings, but just know how things are shaking out in the division won't matter so much. We've had 2 teams clinch their own postseason spots recently. Quad Cities in the High A Central. They are the Kansas City Royals affiliate, and Low A Fresno in the Rocky system. A team that I feel like we talked about a decent amount this year, led by Zach Bean, but also Drew Romo has done a really good job there for the Grizzlies. So keep an eye out for them in Low A West when they eventually make their playoff push here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, lots of races coming right down to the wire, and just know, again, it's only 2 teams that are making it in each league.
Yeah, which has made it a little bit easier for us to suss out what the playoff field is going to look like, but obviously eliminates some of the drama in postseason races. Strike 2 this week, Sam. We're seeing some promotions both to the major leagues and guys climbing the ranks in the minors as September arrives. Josh Lowe is up at the major league level now. Ronnie Mauricio is headed up to Double A, the New York Mets prospect, who will rejoin some of those top prospects in the Double A Binghamton lineup. But let's start with Josh Lowe in the Rays organization, Tampa Bay's outfield prospect who heads up the big leagues. He's 23 years old, the 13th overall selection back in 2016. Give us a little preview of what we'll see from him. And then for Ronnie Mauricio going up to Double A, we'll talk about that as well.
Yeah, so Josh Lowe got called up yesterday. He's the number 76 overall prospect. The reason for that being Randy Arozarena is going on the paternity list. He's expected to be back, I think, before Saturday. I think Saturday might be like the latest he can actually return. So one thing, and speaking to Rays officials this summer, actually, one thing I kept bringing up with them is like, shouldn't Josh Lowe probably be getting his major league debut already? And they said, yeah, if we had spot in the outfield, I'm sure he would have gotten that opportunity. They just didn't. Like, the Rays really like what they have in an outfield core right now with Arozarena, with Austin Meadows, with Kevin Kiermaier, even Brett Phillips, who's a little bit of a cult hero, certainly on this podcast and anybody who's enjoyed minor league baseball over the last couple of years, but also
baseball
in his native
fun.
Tampa Bay. Yeah, baseball is fun. check out Brett Phillips' Baseball is Fun gear that he is now selling. Not that he's sponsoring this podcast, but I just want to throw
He
it
probably
out there.
would.
He probably would. We should reach out to him. Maybe this offseason.
We should.
He does have a day job right now, but maybe we can get in touch with him. But seriously, also Manuel Margot on that team, they really like their defensive outfield right now. And Josh Lowe actually plugs in very well to that. He was drafted as an infielder. I think he played a little bit of shortstop in high school. They played him at third base. But his skill set, he's incredibly athletic. He's really fast, works well in the outfield. So they moved him to center field. He actually made his debut the other night in right field. He has the arm to play there. He really fits in well with that Rays mix. Now, he's younger than anybody else in that I mentioned there. So that's a little bit why he got squeezed out. But I believe he was only one of 9 2020 players in the minor leagues this season at the time of his promotion. He was the only one to do that completely at the AAA level. There's still some questions about the strikeout rate with him. Every stop he's made, he struck out at least 25% of the time. What's going to happen when he goes up against major league pitching? We'll have to keep an eye out on that. Can he hit enough to make the most of the rest of his tools? Because his power is above average. His run tools is plus, like I mentioned. The defensive skills are good enough to be an everyday player. Right now, it's just finding a spot for him in St. Pete. Arizarena going on the paternity list creates that for now. When he comes back, I'm sure Lowe's going to go right back to Durham because of that AAA final stretch. He'll be able to play out there the rest of the way. But, if there are any additional injuries, Phillips is currently on the IL with an ankle issue. Any more injury issues in the outfield, I don't think the Rays will be at all scared of bringing Lowe back up. And who knows, we saw last year, Christian Pache helping out the Braves in a tough spot when they had some injury issues in the outfield. And he went from not playing at all during the regular season to a regular contributor in the playoffs. To Lowe be that version for the Rays this year, we'll see. But the skill set is certainly there for him to at least be a fourth outfielder moving forward. I think he'll hit enough to do more than that just because the other skills are loud enough. And you mentioned Ronnie Mauricio going to Double-A real quick. I'm just going to shout that out as well. Mauricio, the number 56 overall prospect in the game. If you ever get a chance to watch him play, he's going to stand out on any field. He stands at 6'3". He's listed at 166. I can tell you he's a lot more than 166. He's really filled out well. He has a good power tool, good strong arm. Some questions about whether he'll stick at shortstop long-term. I think just because he is kind of big, he has that O'Neal Cruz problem of being a little too big for the position, but we are in the age of bigger shortstops, so he can make that work. He certainly has the arm for it. But the power played at Brooklyn, it is difficult to hit home runs at Coney Island. He hit 19 in 100 games this year. Some issues with the hit tool. He only hit 242, had an OBP of 290, but he's still young coming up. He turned 20 in April, so this is completely his age 20 season. Getting him this small taste of Double-A, where he'll likely start 2022, I think is important for both him and the Mets to kind of allow him to get a taste of that level, see how things go before, he really tries to climb it and conquer it next year. But good switch hitter. All the tools are there. He just needs the experience and continue to get that. And now he's getting a taste of the upper minors for the first time.
And strike 3 this week. Yesterday, a very cool day in the world of baseball. The National Baseball Hall of Fame welcomed 4 new members. Marvin Miller, a non-playing role, obviously, for one of the greatest labor leaders in American sports history. And then Ted Simmons, Larry Walker, and Derek Jeter, who gave 3 terrific addresses to those assembled in Cooperstown yesterday. Ted Simmons, how cool was it listening to Ted Simmons and everything that he had to say to kick off that event yesterday with his speech? But one of the things that I loved is those guys kind of singling out their time in the minor leagues. Larry Walker listed off every town that he played in the minor leagues, or that he called home, at least in the minor leagues. Ted Simmons touched on his time in the minor leagues. Derek Jeter, we know that his time was somewhat limited in minor league baseball. And Ted Simmons was kind of the same way. But Sam, when we look at the importance of what minor league baseball provides, especially to these young players, yesterday was a cool day to reflect on all that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I do really appreciate that, both Jeter and Walker brought up their time in the minor leagues. I know a couple of years ago when Ted Simmons was first elected by committee to the Hall, I got to ask him about his time in the minors. And he said, I stormed through the minors. I hit everywhere and I hit everything.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I made the majors until I was really humbled. And that's kind of telling in its own way. We talk so much about the minor leagues being a place where you can set a foundation, and that's great. And for Simmons, I think it was where he kind of really proved to himself as a teenager that he could play in pro ball. There wasn't the system that is set up now. Like, I don't think people were out there ranking high school prospects back in Ted Simmons' time in the way they are now. So you didn't really know where you shook out. You got a bonus. You could probably compare that to others and stuff of that measure. But Ted Simmons finding out very quickly that he could be a major leaguer. This was not some pipe dream of him signing, and him proving that at every stop in the minor leagues is certainly noteworthy as well. Jeter, he, like you mentioned, Tyler, he climbed to the majors pretty quickly, debuting at 20 years old, which if that happened now, we'd be talking about him as a phenom. You think of Wander Franco debuting this year. Derek Jeter was around the same age when he came up. But I remember reading reports about him when he was going through the lower minors. He was really struggling defensively. And I know some of you might be saying at home, well, maybe that didn't change when he made the majors. But his work defensively was really raw. He really needed to find himself there at the lower levels and learn that basic skill. And that is what helped fueled him. Obviously, the bat got him to the majors as quickly as it did, but that's what set the groundwork for what ended up being a guy who was the captain of a 5-time World Series winner. We can't just overlook that. And he mentioned it in his speech. He brought up specifically Gary Denbo, who now leads both scouting and player development for the Marlins, who happen to be, owned in part by Derek Jeter, because he really got on Jeter about learning the fundamentals, learning that side of the game, making sure you're doing those small things right and well. And that is where you grow and become a good player, because Jeter was a 6th overall pick in 1992. Like, he had a pretty good idea of how good he was coming into pro ball. But I think he really gave a hard thought to going to Michigan, playing college ball. And then he came to the minors, hit well, but defended poorly, needed to take those lumps to build that eventual Hall of Fame career. And Larry Walker, Tyler, I'm going to let you take Larry Walker because you have a much closer relationship and connection with him than I do. But I just love that story, if you haven't seen it, of Larry Walker talking about his time with the Utica Blue Sox and how there was one moment where here's this guy coming from British Columbia, Canada. Not that changes anything, but just, he played a lot of hockey growing up. He was really gifted as a baseball player, but was still learning the basic rules of the game, it felt like, when he entered the minors. And there was a hit and run on. He was speeding around second base, realized the ball was going to be caught, so he just cut across the pitcher's mound and went back to first, clearly beat out the throw, got tagged and was called out. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was here. I was safe. I was getting so angry at the umpire. His manager turned to him and was like, Larry, you're out. And he said, what are you talking about? What's going on? He didn't know that you have to go back and tag the bag.
Said he argued with his first base coach too.
Yeah, his first base coach was his manager. And the manager was George Brett's brother, of all people. This is not somebody who's just like, Ken Brett, who also went to the esteemed Boston University, I would say. But it's those guys all sharing their minor league stories either yesterday or in the past is just a reminder of anytime you go to a minor league ball game, there could be a Hall of Famer there. It doesn't necessarily need to be a top prospect. It doesn't necessarily need to be, one of the bigger names that we're talking about on the show all the time. But the work they are putting in behind the scenes or in front of you in games is what establishes that foundation for guys to eventually make Cooperstown, and for guys to look back on that time and remember it fondly is really, really special. But yeah, Tyler, take it away on Larry Walker.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too. I don't want to say vast majority, but I would say a majority of baseball fans or people who attend major league games, they probably think of the minor leagues in sort of an abstract sense. And it's not something that a lot of people focus on. Now, obviously, we're on a different side of things, and we're very in tune with the community of fans that are way into minor league baseball and into prospects and all that type of stuff. But I think year after year, when we see these Hall of Famers get elected, and you guys have always done such a great job, Sam, when you go to the induction ceremony, or you go to the announcement of who's been elected, all that type of stuff, that press conference, you guys have always done such a great job of uncovering just how those guys who have been elected to the Hall of Fame feel about their time in the minor leagues. And for, somebody like Larry Walker, it's a guy who did not play baseball, did not focus on baseball until he was 16 years old. And now he's in the Hall of Fame. a guy who really for the majority of his life has always told everybody he considered himself to be a better hockey player than he was a baseball player. And it didn't work out in hockey, and he ends up devoting himself to baseball. And you point out, it was a young kid from British Columbia who I believe when he was playing in Utica was 19 or 20. Had not figured out all of the rules of this game yet. He'd actually played a ton more softball in his life than he played baseball until he was in his mid-teens. But the thing that I like that he said during his induction speech yesterday is that story is a story that he always tells kids to this day. And Larry Walker has done a ton with Baseball Canada, helping out with junior national teams and with the professional level national teams as a hitting coach and, just kind of a confidant, a guy who, now becomes the first Canadian position player in the Hall of Fame and just the second Canadian ever after Fergie Jenkins. But he still relays that story to tell kids it's okay to screw up. You just got to keep at it. You got to keep working. You got to keep learning because you see what hard work can do. Now, obviously, it requires a ton of talent as well, but that was pretty amazing. And obviously, for those of us who grew up getting a chance to watch Larry Walker, he embodied a lot of true greatness. And to do it as an athlete who did not focus on a sport where he was later elected to the Hall of Fame, 30 years later, 35 years later, after he started devoting himself to that sport is pretty incredible. And it was really neat getting a chance to see all those guys, telling their stories and the intensity of the fans who were there. You could feel from home. I think how grateful everybody was to be there, to be doing an induction ceremony, to be in Cooperstown. That was really neat yesterday. I thought it was really cool to see, a very heavily 98% Yankees tilted crowd giving Ted Simmons and Marvin Miller and Larry Walker standing ovations as they were announced and as they gave their speeches and all that. It was just a really cool moment yesterday. It was a very good day to be a baseball fan. Now, why it was on a Wednesday afternoon after school has started, I don't know. But it was a very cool day and a very cool moment.
I feel like part of that might have been to discourage folks from going in large numbers.
It could be too.
And also just buying a little extra time when they were initially planning this out.
Right. We do live in a very strange time.
Yeah. There's really not a good time to do this right now. Not that I'm saying it was a bad time. I'm just saying if you're going to do it like when they were planning it out for 2021, I don't know if there could have been a time where it'd be like, yes, that makes sense.
Right. And even to do it in September,
I'm glad they did it
enough as it is.
Right. Everything is weird in 2021.
That is the truth.
I'm glad they got their day literally in the sun. It rained a little bit during G, but it looked like a fantastic day in Cooperstown.
And so congratulations to the 4 inductees in the National Baseball Hall of Fame's class of 2020. Nobody, of course, elected in the class of 2021. So now we move on to 2022. And that'll do it for 3 Strikes on this week's episode of the show before the show. We're back to wrap it up next. Interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radio Land must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One was rock steady. With the others, you're on shaky ground. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A. The Brookline Ironworkers. B. The Bremerton Stitchers. C. The Bassett Furniture Makers. Grab a stool and sit down because C. The Bassett Furniture Makers crafted a reputation in the Bi-State League in the second half of the 1930s. When to be Bassett-based was to be part of a southwestern Virginia town built on building furniture. Bassett Furniture Industries, still operating today, was founded in 1902, and by 1935 the burg was ready for a miners' ball club. The Furniture Makers would have been champions in their first season after winning a second-half title had Bassett not been beset by bountiful batting by Danville in the championship series. with the Leafs leafing the Furniture Makers in the dust with 11 runs in one game and 28 in another during the 7-game set. Having established that benchmark right away, the Furniture Makers made something even greater of themselves in the seasons to come. Whenever their catcher went into his crouch, the team had a leg to stand on, playing with nearly unmatched sophistication through the rest of the decade. As a Yankees affiliate in 1936 and 1937, Bassett won its first of 3 straight titles, scooting to the second with the help of Phil Rizzuto.
Holy cow!
After playing in the Dodgers farm system in 1940, the Furniture Makers busted up in 1941, when the Bi-State League struggled to get a season off the ground. When they did so, Bassett was left behind. The Kannapolis Daily Independent reported that another team and the Furniture Makers were dropped on the table without a murmur. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these well-clothed clubs played in a major city in the minor leagues? A. The San Francisco Knickerbockers. B. The St. Louis Trouser Wearers. C. The Denver Dungarees. Want to know the answer? Check your great-grandparents' wardrobe. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is umping a game in the 1948 World Series, and he's beginning to squeeze Bob Lemon.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Saying goodbye on this week's episode of the show before the show, but before we do, a few weeks remaining in the minor league regular season and then on into the postseason, and MILB.TV is where you can catch it all. Sam, what are you watching on MILB TV this weekend?
Yeah, so the ones I have my eye on is Binghamton at Portland. We talked about in the last segment, Ronnie Mauricio will be making his Double-A debut. Going to be really fascinated to see how he transitions to Double-A, even in this very short span as a switch hitter. See how they're going to play him. We'll see how things go there, but they're playing at Portland, and Tristan Cassis is a story I wrote last week. He hit 5 homers over a 3-game span. It's actually technically a 2-day span because 3 of those homers came in a double header on Friday. So he seems to have really turned the power on since coming back from the Olympics. Before that, he had only 1 homer in his last 20 games. When I talked to him, he said, I'm not really doing anything differently. They just seemed to give me the right pitches to hit, and I drove them, and I'm going to try to keep this going. Unfortunately, he hasn't had a chance to really keep that going ever since because of some postponements, both due to weather and to COVID protocols. But Tristan Cassis, when he takes the field next, I'm going to be really interested to see how he can keep this going, because, when I ask, like, what do you do to maintain this? And he says, just keep on doing this. Like, I haven't adjusted anything to make this happen. It tells me that he just has the natural talent to turn on the power switch whenever he can and really drive pitches. So if I'm a Red Sox fan, I know Bobby Dahlbeck is doing really well right now at the major league level. But before that, everybody kind of assumed Cassis would be the future of the first base position. If this turns into Dahlbeck's really good and the way he's turned things around here in August and September, and Cassis continues to have a lot of jet fuel in his profile, that will be a great problem for the Red Sox to have in 2022. So get a taste of that this weekend when Binghamton travels to Portland on MILB.TV. Tyler, what do you have your eye on?
Yeah, I'm going to the Battle of the Volunteer State in Tennessee, where the Memphis Redbirds are on the road visiting the Nashville Sounds. And Nolan Gorman has been fantastic as of late in the St. Louis Cardinals organization at AAA. He's the number 25 overall prospect in baseball. And Gorman, that first month when he got promoted from AA Springfield to AAA Memphis, kind of trying to figure out that AAA level. He batted .245 with a .696 OPS in July. In August, he hit .316 with a .926 OPS. And so far in September, he is at .379 with a .1056 OPS. Nolan Gorman has definitely gotten it figured out, if not still getting it figured out. He's been really impressive And those two teams, neighbors of a sort in now AAA East, are scoring off this weekend on MILB.TV. So that will do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. He's Sam Dykstra. I'm Tyler Vaughn. We'll talk to you next week.